Hello everybody. This is trying out a podcast. This is a wrestling podcast. By the title, you may see that this is a wrestling podcast, and we talk about wrestling. And this is a pilot episode, a rough draft of what is to come in the next few months. And the rough draft name we have is Rasslin and Logic. That's the name we're going with for now, but it could end up changing because this isn't the final version. And I would like to introduce my co-host, Josh Jenkins. Could you say hello to the listeners?
Certainly can. Hello. How are you doing this fine afternoon in Cape Town?
I'm doing great. We're going to be reviewing AEW Full Gear. My co-host here hasn't really watched it, so I'm going to educate him as to what has happened. So, should we get going with this thing, or what?
I think it's about time that we do.
Okay, AEW Full Gear, Saturday, November 7th, 2020. The buy-in. You know, there was some promos at the beginning of the show and the pre-show. There was like this promo with Jericho. Obviously, I hate both of them ever since that stupid dinner debonair thing that we saw last month, and they've been buried to me ever since. And Chris Jericho was like, La Debonair is the best thing on pro wrestling. I'm like, shut up. Look, and I fast forward to the buy-in match, which was Allysin K, who I've heard good things about, versus the NWA World Women's Champion Serena Deeb. I thought this was a very good match. Serena Deeb, I think, is the best wrestler in AEW. I know. What about Kenny Omega? We'll get to him. He's good, but we'll get to him. So, like, at the beginning of the match, on the presentation of the match, I was like, why isn't this on the main card? If this was on the main card, would have been one of the best matches on the whole card. So since you haven't watched, I'm gonna try to educate you as to what happened. So, at the beginning, they had some lockups and some scientific wrestling, mat wrestling, which I love. And it's not too fast, not too slow, just average pace. People aren't jumping off of top ropes and stuff. And then I wrote down Serena Deeb, I think, is the best wrestler in AEW, male or female. And they had some back and forth slaps early in the match, and then Allysin K didn't really get to shine that much in the match because Serena Deeb dominated most of this match. She did do some nice moves, like a spine buster and power bombs, but still Deeb was dominant during this match, and she really showed how good she is. I think if they give her enough exposure, she could get over like crazy. And then close to the end of the match, I like how the technical scientific wrestling was going on. Like, speaking of technical scientific women's wrestling, why isn't Deonna Purrazzo in AEW? Like, I don't understand. How can you drop the ball? How can you sleep on someone like that? They actually took the Impact girl's belt off of her, which I thought was stupid, because that was the first time I'd seen Diana in Impact. But anyway, back to the match. And Deeb won. I thought this was good. Not too fast, not too slow. It did pick up towards the end. And then the post-match angle, Thunder Rosa came back, and we saw the report that she was not done with AEW just yet. And it looks like they're gonna have a rematch. And I loved the first time. The first time was so good because both of them are great wrestlers, especially Thunder Rosa. And you know, this is how women's wrestling in AEW should be presented. Like, based on that recap, Josh, what do you think about this?
I think that it sounds to me like a match I need to go out and see.
Yeah, it's a good cold opening match. This would have really gotten over if it was on the main card, but yeah, unfortunately that's not the case. It's not on the main card. And now we're going on to the main show. The opening package, the opening video package, it was like this epic announcer voice. They're like, Will Darby Allin capture the TNT Championship and become the face of TNT? Will Kenny Omega beat Hangman Page to advance in the World Title Tournament to face John Moxley or Eddie Kingston? Will Moxley survived the I Quit match? Stuff like that. It was a very good presentation, nice background music. And I wrote that. I'll admit that was a good opening package. And now we're going to Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. I like the introduction that Justin Roberts does, but what the hell with the dancing broom girls? Like, there were two girls on the stage dancing with brooms as Kenny came in, and I thought, ew, what? Then I wrote, these dancing broom girls are goofy as all hell. And Omega, it finally stopped, and Kenny came out, and well, I wrote, this theme song is quite good. I actually had it on repeat one time earlier this year because it was so good. And then Page comes out, and he's got a nice entrance and stuff, but the captions, you know, those captions that they have above the graphic that shows their name and their record. I'd forgotten what it said, but it was something goofy, like Yeehaw Man or something. Like, they can't be serious with Page and his captions. Why? If they're so serious with everybody else, why can't they be serious with Page? And that was just a pet peeve of mine. Then the match starts, and Omega is going pretty quick, but a little too quick for my liking. Like, he goes very fast around the ring. He's quick, but he's too fast. He's not like Sasha Banks, just quick around the ring. He's like jumping everywhere, and he's excited. I get that he wants to give us a 5-star match like he used to in New Japan. I actually thought this was somewhat a good match. Both guys did well. So Omega was beating on Paige, and Paige made a comeback, and then in the match I wrote down that by the way, Don Callis was on commentary, executive vice president for Impact. I was like, wow, the EVP of Impact is here. That could mean very good things. That now they have New Japan, they have NWA, now they have Impact. Imagine they get Ring of Honor. There's so many guys on there that I want to see in AEW. Maybe we could see some good Impact guys to come in and be in AEW. And I wrote down that Don Callis, the EVP, he's a great commentator. I think he should replace Excalibur, because Excalibur just sounds like a nerd who, it's just like a mark in his basement. That's what Excalibur sounds like. I can't stand him. So anyway, they go up top rope already, and they just do a big superplex, and they don't even... I forgot who did it, if it was Paige or Omega. I think it may have been Omega. And then they superplex each other, and one of them got 2 count. It's like, why? Why are they going on the top rope already? Like, nobody's popping, nobody's going crazy, so I don't see why they're doing it. They didn't even get a pop out of the crowd that was there from that superplex. So then they went out to the floor, and like, are you kidding me? They're already fighting on the floor. Like, and then I wrote, if I was Tony Khan, TK, I wrote short, I would find each of these guys maybe like $10,000, because they're being paid a crap ton for each time they go out and fight on the floor, because it's stupid and it's meaningless. And then, but Kenny did this nice moonsault off the barricade of the he shoved Paige in there, and Paige tried to give him a receipt and throw him into the barricade, but he countered and did a moonsault, which I thought was cool. Okay, that was nice. And then they get back in the ring, and Omega's making like faces like a psychopath, like all these weird faces. And I was thinking about what Jim Cornette on his podcast, what he's going to say about this match, and how Kenny's making all kinds of faces, and I was just laughing, thinking what he's going to say about this. So anyway, they're back in the ring, they're fighting, and Paige did this really good looking jumping clothesline. So Omega was on the apron, and Paige was next to the top turnbuckles, and then he ran, jumped on the turnbuckles, turned around, and gave Omega a big jumping clothesline. I thought that was cool. That was really cool. And then, Omega does this big dive. I'm not sure what he does. He does his pose before he dives. Then he did this big plunge onto Paige. These dives are all the same. They all have different names. They're stupid anyway. So, but it looked alright. Then they get back in the ring, and they're on the ramp, and Omega gets a V-trigger on Paige, and then Paige gives him a pop-up powerbomb on the ramp, And then he gets back in the ring and gives Kenny another powerbomb, this time a sit-out powerbomb, and then they do these goofy, phony back and forth punches that you wouldn't be able to believe, and it looks stupid. And then Kenny, I wrote Omega, then Kenny does this nice looking Tiger Driver in 98. Page makes a comeback and he gets a dead eye for a 2 count. Kenny hits a knee on Page. Kenny gives him a V-trigger twice, and then he hit one win and get Angel, and he won. And I wrote this was a good match. I wrote this was okay, but thinking back, it was actually quite a good match. Maybe the best match on the show, I have to admit, even though I don't like Kenny Omega that much as a person. Orange Cassidy versus John number 4 Silver. This would have been a nice cold match to open the show. It was okay for what it was. It wasn't egregiously stupid, because I don't really care about Orange Cassidy or John Silver. Like Silver, he's funny as hell on BT when Brody Lee is shouting at him and he's like, no! And he's jumping. But he's so small and goofy, you can't take him seriously. He's not bad in the ring either. But it's 2 job guys going at it. Would have been a good cold match to open the show instead of Omega and Page. That match should have been closer to the end. By the way, I didn't ask you what you thought about Omega versus Page. What did you think about that, now that I've told you?
It's okay. Based off the description that you basically gave me, it sounds like another match that I need to see from this show.
Yeah, I think you do need to see it. Continue.
I'm not sure if Kenny winning, I think, is the right choice for the long term. And basically, I don't really have much to say since I haven't actually seen it for myself. But it does sound like a match from an in-ring standpoint that I need to see off this show.
Yes.
And in regards to the entrances, because you mentioned it earlier, I don't appreciate Kenny Omega being a mostly heel now, and him having these women dancing for him on the stage with broom. Yeah, like that doesn't make sense to me. So.
I thought it was stupid. It looks so bad. I hated it. So going back to Orange Cassidy and John Silver, I've said this quite a few times now. This would have been a good match to open the show. This should have opened the match, but it was a good match. It wasn't bad, but still, I can't take these guys seriously. And I think Orange Cassidy is where he should be in terms of in the card with job guys. Anyway, the team. What do you think of that match?
If I was the one putting the match card together, right, I would put this on the pre-show and then put the NWA women's match basically here. Like, I would switch these two around.
Yeah, it was originally on the pre-show, but then they moved it to the main show because the Marks want to see Orange Cassidy.
Well,
I don't really, I didn't really see any comedy spots. Maybe that's why it wasn't that bad.
oh well, fair enough then.
He was mostly serious in the duration of the match, so that was fine for what it was. Anyways, the TNT Championship match with Cody Rhodes, champion, versus Darby Allin. I watched this match when it was live because I couldn't sleep earlier this morning. I thought it was a very good match, and at first I was skeptical about Darby winning the TNT title, but now that I look at it, it's been a long time coming since he's wrestled Cody and lost every time. It's about time that he gave Cody Rhodes his receipt, you know?
Yeah.
It was a very good match, and Darby won, and now he's the champion. During the match, close to the beginning, Cody got cocky after he got a 2 count on Darby, and he started doing push-ups, and then Allin was saying, hey, what are you doing? Get serious. And then that cracked me up. It was quite funny to see Allin screaming at Cody for putzing around like that. But anyway, it was a good match. I think that's another match you should go and look at when you have time. I don't really have a description of this match, so you'll have to look at it yourself. But I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the AEW Women's World Championship match with Nyla Rose alongside Vicky Guerrero versus Hikaru Shida, the champion. At the top of the match, I wrote, Shida has had such an abysmal title reign. It's not her fault though, it's just Kenny Omega that couldn't book himself out of paper bag, and if he can't even do that, how is he gonna book an entire women's division? And the match was alright. It was just slow and at snail's pace. And even worse, Shida won. She beat Nyla Rose. I'm like, what the hell? She should have beat him. Just give her the title. Because she's the only one worthy of holding it. And it's sad because those are the only 2 legitimate women in that division, except for Chris Statlander, who's hurt and isn't coming back for a while. And I wrote that this women's division is just as bad, if not worse, than the WWE's women's division. And I said that TK, Tony Khan, needs to find some more women like Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb and Allysin Kate to add to his division, so maybe he can make it better and make it better than the WWE, because that's ultimately what they're trying to do, be better than the WWE. And I wrote, screw this match, because it accomplished really nothing. It buried Nyla Rose again. And this isn't a knock on on Shida, she's alright. She's a little too indie for my taste, but it was an okay match.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
Well, I don't really have much interest in the AEW women's division, like at all. They've continued to treat them like the least important aspect of their entire company since they started out last year. Like, they've never really given them any time to prosper, so to speak. Like, they've never given them the care in terms of the correct booking, and also in terms of how the matches should flow together. Because I don't know, the in-ring perspective of their matches aren't always on par with how they should be. And also, like, the booking of it isn't there, like, most of the time. Because every time I tune into an episode of Dynamite, I mean, when I used to on the weekly basis, like, the women, and I don't mean to sound in defeat here about this, but every time I used to watch weekly, the women were the part of the show that I just wanted to turn off. Because it's obvious to me that AEW doesn't give a shit about them, so why should I, the viewer, give a shit about them?
And we're not really being sexist when we say this women's division is bad, nor are we being sexist when we're talking about how bad the WWE's women's division is. It's just that we want it to be better than it is. And like you said, if they don't care, then why should we? Anyway, that was that.
And also, I don't mean to cut you off there, but I just want to point out that the last time prior to this match on this pay-per-view here, that Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin had a match together was on April 29th of this year in the semi-finals of the AEW TNT title tournament.
Actually, I think I may have seen that match. Wasn't that the one where Darby made Cody accidentally hit his wife, Brandy?
It very well could have been.
I think that's the one. Well, anyway, the AEW World Tag Team Championship match with FTR, the champions, well, the former champions, versus the Young Bucks, the new champions. At the beginning, it was like nice and slow. FTR kept the Bucks on the ground, and it was like, okay, this match might not be as bad as I thought, but then the Young Bucks took over, and then it started becoming another one of these indie style 200 kilometers per hour matches that they always like to have, and it took me out. And I really hate it. I really hate this style of wrestling. I don't like the indie style of wrestling. This is worldwide national television, and they need to treat it as that and not the indies. So they need to scrap this indie mindset. And we talked about this yesterday before this review. And Like, it's crazy. Oh, I don't know. People are saying it. They've only been in operation for like a year. There's room to get better, but if I don't know if that's a valid defense of this
It's not.
company.
It's not. Because they should have had the mindset of what they wanted this company to be on day one. They should have executed this mindset since day one. But they don't have a mindset of what they want their company to be, because they are following along with what the wrestlers have, and also what the wrestlers themselves have always known themselves to be, because they haven't been given a chance to learn any other way. Because, for example, here, if you go to WWE, right, and you're a talent from, let's say, Impact Wrestling or Ring of Honor, like, you're not going to wrestle that same style that you've known for most of your career. No, you're going to now learn the way WWE does things. And that's how AEW should really run their company. Like, you have the AEW style, but AEW doesn't have their own style, because they're doing what... Because, well, I mean, they do, but it's a mixture of every other style that exists. Like, they don't have their own definition, like, to that company, and it's very annoying to me. Like, they need to have their own set style put in place.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
So it culminated into another one of these garbage indie matches that they like to have, and I wrote, fuck this match too. And I wrote that this tag team division is so bad, and the build to this specific match has been terrible. Bad promos, especially by the Young Bucks. Bad acting. Just, this thing has not been good at all. Like, on the tag team division being so bad, it's not as... They don't have it as bad as the WWE does. They at least have more tag teams than the WWE does. They don't have too many tag team championships like the WWE does. But they have so many goofball tag teams like the Best Friends. People like them that get so much TV time, and they now have go away heat with people like me and you. Maybe not so much you, as you haven't been watching lately, but they've really been getting go home heat with me. Like a few months ago, they had this angle where the Santana and Ortiz, who I think is a very good tag team, they attacked Trent of the Best Friends, his mother's minivan, and then they made him look like a complete goof, because they know he's got potential to be someone you can take seriously. They don't want you to take him seriously, so that's why they did this angle with his mother. Like, I understand that you want to give the evil people a receipt for defacing your mother's possession, but don't do it on worldwide television, because you're embarrassing yourself. Like, my gosh, and they've been getting so much TV time now. that Miro is here, and he's with Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. We'll talk more about him later. It's like, it's so goofy. We can't take him seriously, and he hasn't been any good in his AEW run, but we'll talk about him later after this review. So anyway, maybe it doesn't suck as bad. And John Silver and Alex Reynolds, those two goofs, I don't like them either. If they and the Bucks, I don't like them. Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, they weren't very good as a tag team. I didn't like them at all. And the angle that they were doing leading up to the breakup. If there weren't so many goofball tag teams, this tag team division would be great, and I would really enjoy what they have to offer.
Well, in terms of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, I mean, they were two single stars who were put together to form a tag team. Like, tag teams, to me, don't really usually work the way they're supposed to when they're two single stars first.
Yes, and that's something I really hate it, especially when the WWE does it. Like, they're now doing it with, what is it, Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens? Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens, like, why? They're two single stars. They shouldn't be a tag team. They should be on their own individually to be fighting for the Intercontinental Championship. And Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy, I think, is very talented and has potential to get over as a sympathetic underdog main event babyface. Like, Jericho almost got him over when he did that 10-minute challenge in December last year. I really loved that. That was great. So I really wanted Jungle Boy to be a single star, and Luchasaurus as well. Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, I haven't liked their tag team matches at all, especially Luchasaurus. Like, he's so caught up with being his big guy doing things that small guys can do. I feel like everybody else has been doing that, like Keith Lee, Kevin Owens, people like that. And when people actually wrestle like big guys, it's refreshing and a breath of fresh air. Anyway, that's what I think of this tag team division. There are some really good tag teams. Private Party, Butcher and the Blade, I've heard good things about them. FTR. Not even they have been able to save this division. There are good tag teams, Santana and Ortiz, but at the same time there are a lot of goofballs in this tag teams division.
The tag team division is the main selling point of AEW as a company, because when they first formed as a company back in January of 2019, and they came out with that press conference soon after, like, they promoted this company as being primarily a tag team wrestling company. Like, they're going to put tag team wrestling first, and yet we are now in November 2020, and they haven't really made me care as much as I want to about tag team wrestling within this company. Now that could be based off the ranking system, which I think is fucking bullshit, by the way. It could be based off the storylines that they put on. It could be based off the in-ring wrestling, because it didn't always hit the marker. It could be a factor of things, but tag team wrestling isn't exactly at the high point that AEW is wanting it to be, as they keep promoting it as being. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara Elite Deletion match. I hated this. I really did hate this. It was entertaining, but at the same time it was goofy. They were doing so much supernatural stuff that you can't believe. Like, they had Hurricane Helms there. He kept changing from a hurricane to this random guy, and they were trying to be funny. Private Party was there. Santana and Ortiz were there. If Santana and Ortiz were gonna and Private Party were gonna be there, why didn't they make this a 3-on-3 match? Someone in the Discord actually said that. Let me find his name. What's his name?
I haven't had. Sorry, yeah.
His name is Tankers. He suggested that why didn't they just make this a 3-on-3 if they're gonna have Private Party and Private Powerful be involved there? And I said, exactly, why didn't they do that? Nothing made sense. It was all over the place. They even had fireworks, shooting each other with fireworks. What is this, Call of Duty? At the beginning, I was like, they were fighting in the woods, and I was like, this looks like a match out of WWE 2K20, the video game. And then when they were shooting each other with fireworks, and I was like, what is this, Call of Duty or something? It's like, man, this match is terrible. I said this was the worst match on the card, but it wasn't as bad as Le Dinner Debonair. Could have been much, much worse. Anyway, screw that match. A little bit more positive, something I actually liked on this pay-per-view. The Lance Archer promo. This was a good promo. Not only from Jake, but Lance, he cut a very good promo. How he's gonna come for the AEW championship. He's gonna beat everyone up at his big, bad, scary monster that destroys people. I really like Lance Archer. He's way better than Braun Strowman ever was or ever will be, because you can't believe him as being a monster. He's just a big guy that, by the way, who couldn't wrestle his way out of paper bag. I liked him at first when I first started watching wrestling, which was July, August last year. I was still uneducated back then, but now I've seen, wow, this guy isn't really as good as I thought he was. But anyway, Lance Archer, he destroys people, and he's scary, and you wouldn't want to find yourself in front of this guy. Man, I love it. And he throws people everywhere, makes carnage. I really, really like it. And I didn't think he could cut such a good promo. So that was another positive point of the pay-per-view. It's very mediocre pay-per-view. MJF versus Chris Jericho. If MJF wins, he goes to the Inner Circle, joins the Inner Circle, whatever, or he's initiated into the group. I didn't care for this match at all. I don't care how good it was. I don't care how good MJF or Jericho is. They're both buried to me. Especially Jericho. He's plummeted into obscurity this year ever since he lost the AEW championship. It's like, fuck this match, and then I don't want to see this. And then Dustin Rhodes, I really like when Dustin Rhodes comes on the mic. He does like really good old school promos. I wish he was more on top. I wish he was presented as a more main event singles guy. He could maybe, I could see him being a TNT champion, and maybe one of these days being the world heavyweight champion. If they get it together and present him properly, and QT Marshall isn't that bad either. I think he should be a good mid-card guy, lower mid-card guy. Maybe they could give him a TNT championship match and he could have a good scientific wrestling match with Cody or Darby Allin or one of these guys. Great promo by Dustin, nice and old school. And then we get to the main event. I'm really conflicted on this one. AEW World Championship match with Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley, the champion. They're both very good in the ring. I like their strikes and their brawler style. And then they start bringing chairs and barbed wire baseball bats, and thumbtacks. It's just gonna get crazy as you all get a picture of in your head. I don't know whether to say if it was good or bad or really good or really bad. I'm really conflicted on what to think about this. But anyway, they're both very good in the ring. I really like to see them have a normal wrestling match inside the ring, no going outside. Maybe, never mind. They're crazy. I said Moxley is going to die one of these days. That's just what I think is going to happen to him if he keeps having these death matches, hardcore garbage matches, hitting people with all kinds of stuff. And so, Moxley is hitting Eddie Kingston with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. It's like, oh my gosh, these guys are crazy. And then Eddie Kingston takes a string of barbed wire and wraps it around his hand, and he's hurting. And then he punches him with his fist wrapped in barbed wire. It's like, oh my gosh, these guys are. There's gonna be a lot of blood lost in this match. And then Eddie Kingston takes a bag of thumbtacks in the ring, and I'm writing down thumbtacks. Really? And then I was like, I really thought this was a shitty match at the beginning, and I wanted to throw my notebook across the room because I really didn't like this match at first. And then Kingston pours out all the thumbtacks and then does some kind of belly-to-belly suplex to Moxley, and then Moxley lands on the thumbtacks, and there's a whole bunch of them across his back, and then Kingston grabs a bottle of alcohol. I'm like, oh my gosh, is he gonna pour alcohol on his wounds? That was gonna really hurt. And then Kingston is stomping on Moxley's balls, and I was like, okay, well, there goes Moxley's freaking children. No kids for him. And then Kingston grabs the bottle of alcohol and pours it all over his back, and oh my gosh, he's selling like crazy. He's not even selling because it's so real, and they're really hurting each other badly. It's like, oh my gosh. And then at the end, Moxley does the same thing that Eddie Kingston did, wraps a barbed wire around his forearm and gives Kingston a bulldog choke with the barbed wire. And then Kingston, he didn't yell, I quit. Did I mention this is an I quit match? It's like, and then I don't really remember him saying I quit. I didn't. If he did, I didn't hear him. It's like, my gosh, these people are crazy, deranged, lunatic freaks. They're gonna kill each other. And then Moxley retains, and that was that. And Kenny Omega comes out, and I guess he's the opponent at Revolution next year in February, March. And that was AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. What did you think of that last match?
Well, it sounds a bit what's the word? Convoluted.
Yes, it was really violent. There was a lot of blood lost in that match. It was all over the place, and it was crazy. I wanted to say I liked it, but at the same time I didn't, because they were gonna kill themselves, because they're really taking a big risk with this.
Well, I would just like to point out that in an I Quit match, right, you are really supposed to do anything that it takes in order to get the win, and it sounds to me like they went all out in order to get each other to say the words I quit. So in theory, like, they did do justice to what the I Quit match is really all about, but in terms of violence and all of that, they might have took it too far, but I don't know, because I haven't actually seen it 100% myself, so
maybe you should go and look at it just to see what it was like.
Yeah, and also, like, I just want to rewind this a bit. What's it called? The cinematic match with Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara.
I didn't ask you what you thought of that.
It's okay. I don't like cinematic matches because they're everything that actual wrestling is. Because they're not professional, they are silly comedic segments that are being called matches. Like, I don't know, man. It sounds like something that I wouldn't really want to watch personally.
I don't think you should.
And Who won the Chris Jericho and MJF match again?
MJF won, and he's now in the inner circle. Not that
Okay.
I kid.
Okay, I think he's now going to slowly, in the next few weeks, he's going to try and take over the group to be the sole owner of it, and Chris Jericho at some point is going to be removed from the group. That's what I think is going to happen. Because realistically, if you're going to have MJF join the group, then at some point you're going to have him be the new leader. Otherwise, why have him be in the group at all? If you get what I'm saying here.
Yeah. That's pay-per-view. What are your final thoughts? Mine are, this was, now that I'm looking back at it, it was a good pay-per-view. It wasn't the best pro wrestling pay-per-view. I think this was the best AEW pay-per-view of the year. Yeah, the wrestling aspect in ring wasn't as good as I think it should be. That the NXT takeovers have more accomplished that. Well, for me, the storylines haven't been that good, but the wrestling, the in-ring was great, which is why I really enjoyed those, because the wrestling was so good. But this pay-per-view, I think it was the best pay-per-view of the entire calendar year. And we'll see how good, if Revolution can top that.
Okay. To me, it's very disappointing to hear that some of these matches weren't on par with how good they could have been. Because to me, like, when I'm watching a wrestling show, the most important aspect about it is the actual in-ring wrestling. Because to me, in-ring wrestling is what matters most about a wrestling show. You can have the interview segments, you can have the promo segments, like you can have these other segments happening on the show, you can have all this and all that, but at the end of the day, what matters most on a wrestling show is the actual wrestling happening in the ring. And if the wrestling in the ring isn't on par with how good it should be, then that is very, very disappointing, and it makes me upset. And I'm saying this out of passion, because I'm a very passionate wrestling fan, and if something isn't done right, then that just disappoints me greatly.
Other than that, this was an okay pay-per-view. This was the best pay-per-view that I've seen of AEW all year.
Well, I can't personally rate it because I haven't seen it, but based on the descriptions you've gave me, there are a few matches which I don't really have interest in seeing now, and that is so quite disappointing, because if you're putting on a pay-per-view, the goal should be to get the one watching to actually want to watch and be interested in every single match happening on the entire show. And to me, there are a few matches here in which I'll be happy enough to skip, and I don't like saying that.
Anyway, that's your Full Gear AEW review. This was an okay show, the best AEW pay-per-view of the year. And we will see you in our next episode when it fully debuts in December, maybe around the weekend of the 5th, the Saturday the 6th. And we'll see you all then.